Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome to Ole Walls House! Let's get fucking listening, baby! Yes! Welcome to Ole Walls House. It's me. It's your man. It's your main man. It's Ole Walls, and I'm back. You can see me again. Hopefully. Got through a little technical difficulties with Spotify last week. So, first of all, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for checking it out on YouTube and seeing it on Spotify video too. So, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the support. Huge thank you to Kevin, Big Kevy. First of all, you killed it with that intro. It's so sick. It's awesome. Thank you, man. That was sweet. Thanks for doing the editing. Kind of thanks for going and saying just, hey, keep sending it to me. So you're the man. Thank you so much. Definitely could not have probably figured this all out without you. So I am in your debt for helping me get this rolling. As I mentioned, on YouTube and on Spotify and video. So on YouTube, definitely go rate, review, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, share it with everybody. Fun show coming. We got MJ's back this week to kind of recap the draft, and Bill Gardner, the Big Cat, is going to come through and kind of talk a little more Packer specific stuff with us. So we got them coming up here in just a second. Also talk some fights, some golf, some playoffs, hockey, and basketball, and maybe watch a little more baseball recently. And we got my passing thoughts as well. So fun show. And without any further ado, let's just get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, back this week is the man, the draft guru, MJ. He's here. And also joining us this week, talk a little draft and a little Packers offseason is Bill Gardner, the Big Cat. He's here as well. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. How are you guys?
What's up, Walls?
Not too bad, Wally. It's good to be back.
Yeah, excited to have you both here. A lot of topics to cover. Pretty interesting draft. Some interest in Packer world for Bill and I. And MJ, when we discussed this about maybe doing it separately, MJ said he'd like to come along and discuss the Rodgers trade. That earned an eye roll in the group chat from Bill about that. But MJ's big Packer. We're all here for it. So why don't we start right there? Rodgers officially traded to the Jets. Packers got a first round swap this year, moved up 2 spots to 13 from 15. Got the second round pick of the Jets this year, and had to get a second. Then the big other pick was the second next year. That is a conditional first. Bill, if you're still there, I don't know. We might have lost you some technical difficulties, but if you're still there, any thoughts?
I'm here.
Okay, just down the video. But yeah, what'd you think? What'd you think of the trade now that it finally went down?
I think in the end, Green Bay ended up doing okay, because I know there was a big time where it seemed like the Jets had all the leverage. Because Rodgers comes out and says, I'm going to play for the Jets. We're going to get this done. And it's like, okay, well, Green Bay, they've already decided to move on. So it's like, what are you going to be able to get back now? Because you've already made the plans to move on. So I think what they ended up getting is actually pretty decent. It's nothing compared to like the recent deals you've seen with like Stafford and Russell Wilson, like nothing like that. But for the situation they were in, I think they ended up coming out okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, I forget who I heard say this. Rodgers was not going to play football for the Packers next year.
No.
The Packers didn't want him to, and he didn't want to. So those things considered, I think it was a good deal. MJ, where do you fall on it?
I think you guys are right. I think it was just one of those stories that happens every once in a while with these older quarterbacks where teams are just saying, we either need to work something out where it's going to be some compensation for us, or you got to take a team-friendly deal or something. And then, talks start to break down and teams just decide, even though you probably have 2 or 3 really great years in you, we're going to move on and and build for the future a little bit. And I think that's kind of what the Packers decided to do. And then Rodgers is that type of guy where he starts hearing that stuff, he's just going to be like, all right, well, I'm done now too. But I think they did a good job. I worry a lot about Jordan Love for you guys, but it's a good year to be bad because there's some talent coming in next year for rookies, so could be in a good spot.
Yeah, just to your point, I screenshotted this from Andrew Brandt on Twitter about quarterbacks that were like decade long, like face of their franchise kind of guys that didn't end up at that team to retire. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Favre, Rodgers now, Joe Montana, Phillip Rivers, Donovan McNabb, Wilson, that must mean Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, and he goes, and many more. So like it rarely ends that the guy retires with the team, happy ending, they walk off. The John Elway scenario doesn't happen very often. So I think best of a bad situation there for the Packers. And like you mentioned Love, like that was like the 800-pound gorilla in the room, was that Love has 2 years, 1 year left, and then they have the option after this year. So like they had to do something. Like they had to either move him or start him. So yeah, kind of was what it was, and I think the Packers turned out all right.
That's the hard part with Rodgers too. He's constantly talking about if he's even going to play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been same thing with Favre. It's been the last few years. He's, am I going to play? Am I not? I'll make my decision when the time is right. And it's like you never know what he's going to do. And I think you just get to a point where you gotta do something. You can't just constantly sit around and wait for him to make up his mind. But I think, I've seen a lot of people who are like, because of that stuff, there's a lot of Packers fans who are like, good, I'm glad it's Jordan Love time and ready to move on from Rodgers drama and all this stuff. Dude, they're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
I think he's been so good for so long that people forget how great of a quarterback he is. Like what is just expected of him is way better than average. And Love is, at this point, probably average. We've only seen him, what's he played, like 1.5 games? He played that game against the Chiefs, and then he's been in a couple times when Rodgers got hurt. But there's not a lot of sample size there, and people are all in on him.
He threw one fucking crossing route that Christian Watson took to the house, and all of a sudden he's the next coming of Packers greatness.
And when they show his clips, it's that pass. That's all. Yeah. It's just that on the loop. It's like, this is our guy. And he didn't even do anything. Watson's the one that took it to the house.
Yeah, he threw. It was like the Tim Tebow pass in that playoff game. That was it. Demarius Thomas.
Yeah.
Took it 60 yards to the house. It was like the exact same play, but in the opposite direction, like a 15-yard crosser, and you just kind of hit the guy in the stride. With Rodgers, you brought up a good point. Like this past year, he wasn't good by his standards. But he was an average NFL QB.
Yeah.
Maybe a little better. And people wanted to burn him at the stake. And the only other year that he's had a down year was that 2019 year. He was just a little off. He was still an upper echelon quarterback. You make a good point about what's expected of Rodgers. And when he disappoints, it's still okay.
Yeah. A down year for him is a decent year for other quarterbacks.
Yeah. If Jordan Love has a down year, there is going to be trouble in Green Bay. So let's move on to Green Bay's draft, kind of see what how they move forward. MJ, what I know you kind of made a list of who you thought were the biggest winners and losers in the draft. Where'd you find the Packers on that list?
I think they're in the top third. I think I would say in the league of doing a good job. We talked kind of off camera here before we started just how many picks they had. They ended up with 13 picks. They got pick 13 from the Jets with the trade and everything. But I really like their picks. I thought maybe Vaness at 13, the edge rusher out of Iowa, was a little rich for them. And a lot of scouts and things that I read were either really high on him or maybe a second or third round grade on him. So it was kind of a mixed bag of feelings for this kid, but he's young, he's super strong, he's got room to get better. I really like Luke Musgraves, the tight end out of Oregon State. I think that's a good pickup for him. Has a lot of good route running. Of course, he does have a little injury history. The Jaden Reed kid from Michigan State, small, fast player. And I think one of the things, too, this is kind of a little off topic, that we talked about last week and Bill and I have talked about in private before, too, is this draft has a lot of small players. And I think people or fans, at least of their teams, I think have been kind of hard on some of their teams picking guys. Oh, this guy's so small and dainty, and he's so thin. Like there's 168-pound corners going. But I think that's just kind of somehow like the NFL is starting to get where it's. You just, as long as you can play football, it doesn't really matter. So I think guys have been hard on that Jaden Reed for being smaller. But I think I think NFL quarterbacks and offensive coordinators can really do a lot with these guys. So I think they had a really good draft. And I was going to ask you guys what you felt about the two tight ends with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgraves.
Why don't you lead that one off, Bill?
I think I told both of you guys, like, before the draft, I was like, in the first 2 rounds, 2 or 3, I said in the first 2 days, I think, I said they're absolutely going to get a tight end and a wide receiver now that Rodgers is gone. Like, yeah. It's comical. Like, it's a joke that they went all those years never really getting him. I mean, yeah, they've gotten good receivers in the second round. Like, they have a good track record with that, but the tight end position for Green Bay has been bad for a long time. I mean, it's been okay here and there when they've been able to plug a couple guys in, like the year I think Jared Cook was there. It was a 1-year thing, but that was a good year for them. And recently, Robert Tonyan, he had 1 good year, and then
people realized he was on the field in the red zone.
Like, so it's good that they finally addressed like the position. It's surprising that 2 tight ends that early. I'm glad, though, that they waited until the second and third. I wouldn't have been happy with a tight end because a lot of people had them taken in tight end at 13 or 15 before the trade. And I think that's just so early for a tight end. I don't think any of them got taken until Kincaid got taken at almost the end, right?
Yeah.
25 to the Bills.
And then I know a lot of people said the Mayer kid was a possible first round. He didn't go to the second. So I think they got good value with those tight ends.
And both, to cut you off here just for a second, I think both of those tight ends had some injury stuff that kind of limited their production in their last year.
I think the Musgrave kid only played like 2 games last year.
Yeah.
He got hurt.
Yeah. He had a left knee, and then Kraft is he had a left knee stuff too, but he had right ankle surgery. Right ankle surgery, and missed some time too. So, but they're 2 different players too. So you guys are getting, one guy in Kraft that's probably more of like your blocker, can go out and get some passes and stuff, but you're also getting Musgrave, which is probably more of a Kincaid type, where he's going to go stretch the field a little bit more, good route runner. So you kind of can play both those guys at the same time, and kind of give that defense a look like they could be passing, could be running. So I think it's a good mix for them as long as they can stay healthy and they can develop. And I think it's a really good way to start to build this team back up a little bit, because if you find a quarterback, or if Love starts to really turn around, I think he's going to have a good team around him.
I will say one thing I liked with what they did, and you kind of mentioned it there. The tight ends are very different type of players. And if you look at the wide receivers they drafted, you've got, the Jaden Reed, the smaller guy, a little more speed, maybe some slot guy. And then you get like Dontavian Wicks and Grant DuBose. I know nothing about them, but they're just different builds of players. They're a little bigger, a little taller. So at least some variety. It wasn't like the same thing over and over and over.
The Reed kid isn't a typical Green Bay pick most of their receivers are big and lean. I mean, in the past years, you think of like Valdez Scantling, St. Brown, even Watson now. They're all like really tall, lean guys. And Reed's he's very small. So it's not like a typical Green Bay pick. But I know like the tight ends are like they make sense because Green Bay is huge on that like relative athletic score, how they grade these guys. And both of those guys scored like it's on a scale of 10, and they were 9 something. So same with the Vaness kid. It's just based off size, speed, strength, and they put this thing together. And all those guys were like what Green Bay likes. Huge athletes, basically.
Mm-hmm. And Vanessa's got some flexibility to him. From what I've read and seen, like they can line him up on the line, on the edge, or move him back to like backer a little bit. Excuse me. And so I think that's a nice touch. I wouldn't have been upset had they gone offense there, but I just don't think that was ever going to happen. I think that was kind of like we're going to keep to the plan and draft defense.
They can't help themselves. They always want to get this big athlete on defense in the first round. That's always what it is.
Yeah, it's what 13 of the last 14 years have been defense, and the one that wasn't was Jordan Love. So
yeah.
Oh man. Man, oh man. Hey, in fairness to that point, though, guys, it's a lot harder to find a defensive end or a defensive tackle or a good corner than it is maybe a good wide receiver and stuff. So that could be their philosophy of like wide receiver classes are so deep and all this stuff where you don't always get the depth in the drafts in those other positions. So that could be most of their thinking.
Yeah, and they've
All right,
had success getting offensive guys later. And for the most part, I think they're
Sean Clifford, quarterback of the future. Come on.
You're just baiting me into it. You're just fucking baiting me into it, aren't you? I don't know what the fuck that pick was. I wasn't watching on Saturday, and I get the notification on my phone. The Packers have drafted Sean Clifford in the 5th round. I was like, what the fuck? And I started doing like research because I was like, I didn't think Clifford was like being touted to go that high. Like, I follow Penn State football. Like, I hadn't read anything about it. So I get looking, and some of the things, Clifford was either not part of like the top 400 prospects, definitely never made a top 300 prospect thing. The one place I could see that ranked him like 416, and he went 149th in the draft. So that one boggles my mind. I don't know. It's not like he was even like a guy you watched in college and were like, man, this guy, he pops off the fucking TV screen, even in college football. Like, he was at Penn State for 6 years.
He's older than Jordan Love.
Is he? He's 24.
Dude,
holy shit.
I saw a thing that said he's like 3 or 4 months older than Jordan Love. And Jordan Love's been in the league for 3 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember when Jordan Love came in the league, he was really young. Yeah, Jordan Love, November of 98. God damn, November of 98? Oh, fucking
bringing in the old veteran. Bringing him in.
I was listening to this one of the Packers dudes. I think his name's Andy Herman. He was talking about how Green Bay wanted to grab a backup quarterback at some time during this draft. And I think what happened was they had a list of guys that they were interested in, and something happened. All of a sudden, I think there might have been like maybe a run on some quarterbacks, like late round guys. But basically, what he said is that their board got so thinned out that the only quarterback that they still kind of had looked at and were interested in was Clifford, and he was the last guy left on their list. So they kind of had to jump and take him, or else I don't think they were going to take anyone.
Yeah, in the 5th, a couple of quarterbacks had went earlier in the 5th. Let me peek at the end of the 4th here. Quarterback had gone right at the end of the 4th. A couple more a little farther up in the 4th. So yeah,
I'm sure those were probably the guys they were interested in, and they just went and got stuck with Clifford.
Yeah, I mean, so in the previous 20 picks, 5 quarterbacks went. So, yeah, there's the run that led him to Sean Clifford. And yes, you are right. Sean Clifford was born in July of 98. Jordan Love, November of 98. So, yeah, Sean Clifford is about 3.5 months Jordan Love's senior.
Dude, that's like all these like COVID kids. That's like Stetson
Yeah.
Bennett's almost 30.
Did Stetson Bennett get drafted?
Yeah, by the Rams, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, I think we've exhausted the Packers discussion.
They'll be bad this year.
I don't think there's more.
They'll be
What's
bad
that?
this year.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. It'll be interesting how bad they are. Like, are they bad enough that they don't bring Love back? Like, they got to be pretty bad for that to happen, I would have to imagine. Like, Love will have to be awful.
I think they have to do his 5th-year option next month. And
Oh, is it really?
I think so, and I assume they're going to do it. So, I mean, I think we're getting at least 2 years of Jordan Love, no matter how it goes.
Yeah.
I always figured that. Go ahead.
Walter. You sure?
Yeah, I'm looking for this here. So go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I think picking up his 5th year doesn't really do. It's not going to hurt the Packers. It's not like he's making top tier money or anything yet. If you're really bad or average and you don't really like what you see this year, maybe you try to go get a rookie next year or bring in a veteran or something. But if you get a rookie next year, start Jordan Love in his 5th year. After 4 to 6 games of being bad again, throw that rookie in. And that it could be something like that too. So I think keeping him isn't like, oh, he's got to play these next 34 games. It just has, he's probably going to be on the team at least. But man, I just don't see it. And I feel for you guys, but I don't see him really turning into any savior for you guys. And I apologize for saying that, but I think that's the truth of it.
Gutekunst is going to do everything he can to make himself look right in taking Love when he did. So that's why you see all the tight ends and the receiver, and they're going to do everything they can to make it look like they made the right decision by drafting him. So I think they're going to try their best to make it work. But, I mean, if he's bad, he's bad. There's no way to cover it up.
Yep. They have until Tuesday to pick up his option. That is May 2nd, Tuesday, May 2nd. So
they'll probably do it
by the time this episode is out, he'll probably have been picked up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a $20 million salary for the 2024 year. So I would have to imagine.
I don't know. Maybe they're ready to ride with Clifford. They like what they saw.
The big red dog.
Dude, he held off Will Levis. Will Levis had to transfer because of him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so like him holding off Will Levis at Penn State seems like it was 8 years ago.
Yeah, it probably was.
Young men then.
I think it was legitimately in like the 2020 season. Like, I think it was the COVID year. Levis was still around. So nuts. All right. Well, yeah. Let's move on. Let's go to the rest of the draft here. We won't drown our sorrows in the Packers the whole time. So, I think the big news kind of right away was that the Texans got aggressive and they got aggressive quickly. They go CJ Stroud too, and then immediately trade back up. I mean, draft started with a bang. What'd you think when you saw that? And one of the prisoner of the moment here, but one of the more entertaining first rounds, maybe since like why am I losing them? The gas mask guy,
Tunsil.
Since the Tunsil year, like it was one of the more entertaining first rounds. So
yeah, and like we had like big jumps, but we also had a lot of those weird trades where it was like, the Eagles at 10 trade and just swap picks to 9. Like It was almost like, and that happened a few times where teams would just move up one spot. They just kind of flip flop picks, which I felt like was kind of new. Like you just don't see that as much as it happened this year. But there were some big moves too. You mentioned the Texans. I have them as my third most favorite draft class this year. I like Stroud. I thought Will Anderson going to him. I mean, you get 2 of the top 5 prospects probably. But then they get Scruggs in the second round from Penn State. I think it was a decent pick. I love Tank Dell. That was a name we didn't really get the chance to talk about last week. Nathaniel Dell, they call him Tank. He's a wide receiver from Houston, another smaller receiver, but I think it was a good pick, a very Brandon Cooks fill in for them, I think.
Mhm.
And I like what Houston did, and I'm excited to see what Stroud can do. And I thought it was a really exciting first round. Lots of surprises for me at least, but lots of movement. It's always exciting when there's lots of trades.
Yeah, and you mentioned surprises. I think two of the big surprises we saw in the first round. I mean, I don't think Anthony Richardson was a huge surprise at number 4 once Stroud went, but to see 3 QBs right in the top 4 was a little bit of a surprise. It was like, oh, this is happening. Like, and then
Yeah,
to not see another one for a while was kind of equally as surprising to me. I figured
yeah,
with those 3 all going that you would get Levis in the first round, but we got to watch him in the green room all night. That was always a little awkward. And I was surprised not so much by Bijan Robinson. I think there was enough out there that I kind of knew that was coming, but I was really surprised by the Lions taking Jahmyr Gibbs.
friggin' love it. I love it so much. Like,
Yeah, you
so
said
Bill
we're
actually
going to be
texted me.
eating that one in the NFC North for a couple years.
Yeah, Bill texted me that night and was like, Detroit's drunk. And I was like, they might be, but they're getting some good players, man. Like I love Gibbs. Like a lot of people think he's like Alvin Kamara. I like he just you watch some stuff and watch like those Alabama games. He's running. He's making SEC corners and safeties and linebackers look silly. I love that pick. They get Hendon Hooker, who a lot of people think could be, a future star in the league in the third round. But he's not going to play this year probably too much coming off an injury. But that I love almost every pick. They may have been earlier than what I thought, and that's what the surprising part of it was. But I like a lot of the players that they got. They were one of my favorites.
Yeah, Bill,
Dude,
what'd you think of the Lions doing that? Seeing how we'll see him in the NFC North here for a couple of years.
dude, the whole first round, it was like people were playing Madden.
Yeah,
The 2-3 with the Texans, and then a bunch of running backs early. Like it was like a video game draft. But dude, even though like the picks for the Lions were not like typical picks, like a high running back and then a middle line, like I think I said this to MJ too. I was like, they seem like they're getting guys that seem like Lions though. Like it
yeah.
just seems like they really are like with Campbell. They're building the coach Dan Campbell. They're building that Lions mentality, which I think is it was like kind of a joke when he first got up there when he was with the goofy press conferences and stuff. But now it's like people are really buying into it. And dude, I think they're gonna be okay. Like I think they're gonna start to really pick up some momentum here, which is bad for Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay has a chance to be the worst team in the NFC North this year.
Yeah, very possibly. And one of the guys we haven't mentioned yet for the Lions, Jack Campbell. We were talking about this guy before we hit record. 6'5", 250, runs a 4.65 40. What a goddamn animal he
Yeah.
is! Just a physical specimen.
Dude, he'll play middle. I mean, barring any injuries, he'll probably play middle linebacker for them for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
and that's
stuff
another
in the
pick.
middle.
That's another pick too, guys. Like it was like guys like there were people that saying like, yeah, end of the first, probably a second round guy. But like they were just like, this is our guy. Like, and we're not. So he's probably not going to be available to us at pick whatever. So we're just going to get him now. Like, and that's just what these teams do sometimes. And they just say, this is the guy that we fell in love with. So this is we're picking him at this spot, even though it might even be around early.
Yeah, you kind of see that like philosophy. There's kind of like best available at the time, best fit, or this is just the guy. Like if this guy's available when we pick, we don't care that maybe it's, hey, 5 picks too early. Like we just love him and we're going with it. And I feel like there was a lot of that in this draft. Like, people were like, this is our guy. We like him. We don't really care that, hey, he's valued 10 picks later or something like that. We just think we like him. We think he's a great fit for the team, and they went for it. And it's hard to argue that. And, you never know about the draft. Like, we could sit here and say, hey, this guy's going to be awesome. And 2 years later, he could be out of the fucking league. Like, that is a very real possibility for all of this. So
you never know with any of these guys. So, I mean, what the Lions, like you said, they took who they liked. I mean, if you're going to miss, might as well be on a guy that you like, instead of almost getting forced into a pick. This is too early to take this guy. Let's take this one, and then maybe that guy doesn't pan out. And then, you didn't like the pick anyways, and it didn't work out. Just go with – I think you should just go with what you think is going to be best for your team, because so many times it doesn't work out anyways. I'd like to see how many of, these first-round guys end up having, a full – considered a successful career.
It'd be interesting to know, how many guys, go 5 years. Just make it to, a second contract.
Mm-hmm. It's not much. I think the average career is three seasons. Mm-hmm. So it's not a lot. And like you guys were saying, we won't I know a lot of people do a lot of with grades and stuff. And we mentioned this a little bit, I think last week, Wally, was you don't really know until 3 or 4 years out, how these draft classes really are. So I think we mentioned the Bobby Wagner and the Russell Wilson, that was, people were saying that was a terrible draft class for the Seahawks, and they got 3 future Hall of Famers out of it. So you just never know. Yeah.
Average by round. Round 1 averages 62 regular season games, which is 3.7 seasons.
Yep.
Round 2 is 3.3 seasons, 3 2.8, 4 2.6, 5 2.4, 6 1.9, 7 1.7. So, the average is just
all
over
the first round
3.5
picks. They come with the 5th-year option, right?
Yep.
Is it all? I couldn't remember if it was all, if there was a cutoff in the first round where there was a 5th-year option.
A lot of teams, like what the Packers did, going up and getting Jordan Love a couple years ago, the reason so many teams try to come up from the second round to the late first round is so they can get that 5th-year option. So that's why a lot of times you'll see quarterbacks early and then some late, just because teams are well, we like this guy, but we don't want to draft him in the second round, because if we do it the first round, we can get that 5th-year option on a rookie deal. So that's why they do it.
Pretty sure that's what the Ravens did with Lamar. They came back up at 32, I think.
Yeah, he was the last pick in the first round. He just got paid.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
They finally figured that out. I was going to say, if that felt like a big miss if the Ravens let him walk and had to start over at quarterback. That felt like something that both sides just had to get done, and that if they didn't, they would have looked like idiots between them.
I think so too. I'm a big Lamar fan. As a quarterback, I think he's a really talented guy, and I don't know why he gets so much hate as much as he does. But I was happy for the Ravens, and I'm not a Ravens fan by any means, but I'd like them. But I was happy for them to get that done.
Yeah. Back to the draft after I took us on a little sidebar there. Elsewhere in the first round, anybody you thought was a real big steal? Maybe somebody who was too big of a reach, MJ? What are your kind of thoughts on kind of that track?
I don't know. I'd say I think it went pretty good. I was going to mention too, I got the first 4 picks right in my mock draft. I got the first 4 players. I thought I was going to look like a genius coming in on this, and then it all fell apart at pick 5. But I don't know. I think I really like the Darnell Wright pick, the offensive tackle. He went a little farther up than I thought. And to be honest, man, I think a big surprise was that we mentioned it off camera. Nolan Smith dropping to 30 and getting to the Eagles after they get Jalen Carter, I think was a big surprise. And to me, it was the reason I put the Eagles as my number 1 team of the draft. I just think with the team that they have. Now they're trading for DeAndre Swift from the Lions, and I just there's no real position on the Eagles that are struggling right now. Maybe some secondary spots, but I thought that was my biggest surprise was how well the Eagles did, and I knew they could, but they delivered, man. And I just think they did a really nice job, and it makes me like physically ill, physically ill. But I think that was my biggest surprise of the first round. What about you, Bill? Did you see or hear anything that you thought was?
The Jalen Carter thing, him falling to 9 when
Yeah.
I think it was pretty like consensus that he has the most talent out of anyone in the first round. And it's a D tackle too. You know, it's hard to find D tackles that are really, really good. So for him to drop all, and of course he drops to the Eagles. You know, like things just have really just been working out for them lately. That's just, it's crazy to me that that other teams let him fall that far.
Yeah.
And like even who did the Bears end up taking? The tackle.
Yeah, they traded back.
Yeah.
The ninth pick was the
Skoronski?
Bears, right? That was one of those one spot flips.
No, it
No?
wasn't Skoronski. I don't have it in front of me right off the top of my head.
Skoronski went to the Titans. The Bears took Darnell Wright out of Tennessee.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Like it's crazy to me that the Bears didn't need a quarterback, so they sat there, and it's almost like why didn't they take Carter? Like why not have possibly the best player in the draft? Because they didn't get much out of it. They dropped back one spot and picked up like a 4th or 5th round pick.
Yeah, I can't remember the
Like
specifics.
it wasn't
but it was
much
something
at
like
all.
that.
So like it's surprising, but I guess unless they just had the mentality like we got to protect Fields, so we're getting a tackle no matter what. But it's crazy to me that so many teams passed on it. It's crazy too that like someone didn't maybe try to jump up. Someone sitting in the early teens wasn't like, he's still there. Maybe we go grab him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a couple of the teams that like let him pass, like MJ and I, we mentioned like Seattle felt like the perfect fit for this guy.
Yeah.
So that was a little surprising. The Cardinals were there, but I don't know what the Cardinals were doing. They went and got Paris Johnson, highly rated tackle. And again, it seems like the Cardinals were making moves to position themselves to have a bunch of capital to go make a play next year to get up to number 1 for Drake May or Caleb Williams. Like that's what everything about what they did in this draft screamed. We are stockpiling picks and we're going to be ready next year to go get their quarterback of the future.
Yep.
I
think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then the Raiders, and then the Falcons passed on them too. I could see both of those places could have snagged them. They seem like they weren't in the quarterback market, and then they did other things. So yeah, it was funny to see, like we said, the best rated guy with the most upside. It seems like kind of fall as far as he did.
Seattle really seemed like where he was going to go. He seems like he would have been a Seattle Seahawk. Like he just looks like he would fit that. But
either of you guys have any thoughts on the Cardinals?
No, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. I think they're giving Murray maybe one more year, and then I think it might be go time. And a lot of times you see this when there's new coaching and new, bosses in the house. Like you'll start to see guys like, yeah, we like him, but we want our guy. If we're gonna go down with this ship, we're gonna get our guy that we want. So I could see them. I could see them doing that. I totally agree with you.
You were on to something else, MJ, and I kind of cut you off.
Yeah, there was just 2 picks that I thought were for like my likes. I thought were a little rich. It was Emmanuel Forbes. Remind me, he went in the teens, cornerback. And my other one, while you're
he
looking
went 16 to Washington,
and the New York Jets.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Jets at 15 getting Will McDonald. I liked Will McDonald, but I thought the Cowboys could look at him at 26, and I thought that would have been a little bit of a reach. And him going at 15 was kind of just a surprise to me, I guess. I wasn't ready to hear his name that early. So those were two, I think, if you were looking for maybe two names that guys either loved or didn't really even have on boards, I think those would be two in the first round that surprised me the most.
Speaking of the Jets, I didn't think there was a shot in hell that they weren't taking Jackson Smith and Jigba right behind the Packers. I thought that was 100% booked in. As soon as the Packers didn't take him at 13, I was like, oh, the fucking Jets are going to take him, and they're going to give Rodgers the first round wide receiver, just as like one final fuck you to Green Bay for Rodgers. And when that didn't happen, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong on that one, but I thought that one was coming 100%.
I really thought the Jets were going to get a tackle because everyone said, you got Rodgers, you got to protect him. But yeah, the Will McDonald was a little surprising because I guess that's
it didn't. When I saw that, I was like, I'm not super familiar with Will McDonald, but this doesn't seem like where they were going. Like I said, I thought it was going to be wide receiver, and if not, I thought pass blocker was the next logical step, and they kind of didn't do either. So, MJ, any other thought? Who'd you like? We've mentioned a couple of the teams you've liked. Kind of lay us out some of your favorites.
So my top 10 favorites were the Eagles at 1, Lions, Texans we talked about too. I really like Seattle's draft. I thought they did a really nice job. The Buffalo Bills, I think, got a lot better. Steelers, Giants, and then I have Packers, Cowboys, and Broncos. Even though the Broncos didn't have a lot of picks, I like the ones that they did. And those were kind of my 10 teams that I really liked. I didn't think there were many I don't know. They call them losers, but like I said, I don't really know if I'd like to do that just because we just don't know. But those are my teams that I thought really did a good job. Eagles, Lions, and Texans, I thought were far and away the top three. But those kind of rounded out the bottom there too.
You want to talk about your Cowboys? How do you feel? How do you feel coming out of it?
Okay, so I do want to talk about them. Listen, so the Cowboys have drafted very, very well. I, as a Cowboys fan, have been very, very lucky that the Cowboys can draft as well as they do. There has been some times where things do not make sense to me at all, and then a year or two later, I just have to stop because it was a good pick. It turned out fine. The only one I will say that I was kind of right about was Leighton Vander Esch. I didn't like that pick, and he's kind of been meh. So Mozzie Smith. So apparently, I heard that the Cowboys had Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle from Michigan, at 13 or 14 as their 13th or 14th best player on their board. And they got him at 26. So if that's true, and he turns out to be this big run-stopping defensive tackle, that is a home run. So I like that pick. If he turns out and he gets even somewhat of a pass rush to him, I think it's a fantastic pick. So I like that one. I like Overshown, the linebacker from Texas. I think he's a Dan Quinn guy. I think he's long, athletic. He played safety.
Hang on, you skipped somebody. You skipped the draft pick there.
Purpose, all right, I'm trying to help the show, Wally. Okay, he played safety, moved down to linebacker. Then he got a new defensive coordinator. They moved him more like edge rusher. I think that's like the Dan Quinn guy. Like can kind of cover, can kind of do things. I'm only worried that he's just going to be a special teamer. I really like the edge from San Jose State. Fihoko or whatever his name was. I think he has a possibility, big, strong kid. But I did skip one. Tell everybody who that is.
That would be Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end from Michigan. Schoonmaker.
So this is where I have a problem, and I hope fans of the show that are also Cowboys fans can understand, like, you just drafted Jake Ferguson from Wisconsin last year. because you probably knew Dalton Schultz was going to be gone because they franchised him and stuff. So, like, all right, he's out the door now. And then you get Hendershot as kind of more your receiving tight end. And those guys came along last year. Schultz was injured a few times. They played halfway decent. And you skip out on some of these really high end tight ends for the seventh, eighth, ninth best tight end in the class. And he's a carbon copy of Jake Ferguson. And he's probably maybe slightly better or could be better than Jake Ferguson. But what do you do with him? So you're either going to cut Jake Ferguson and put this guy in and give up on Ferguson after a year, or you're going to just have just three bodies in there with for what? Like, what are we like? What is? Why is that a second round pick? I just don't understand. There was so much more that you could have done there. It just didn't make sense to me. Maybe he'll be a Hall of Famer, but I don't see it. So that one's the only one that bothered me.
I will say the last time the Cowboys made a pick that bothered you this much, do you remember who it was, Bill?
Was it Van Der Esch?
Nope.
No.
Maybe. It might have been. Van Der Esch might have bothered him as much, but Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
MJ was furious the night they took Micah Parsons.
But only because it was at 12. Like, you just now, and if you remember, all right, listeners of the show, I said I didn't like it because he needs to be a Hall of Fame caliber linebacker if you're going to pick him there. And so far, that looks like it maybe could be the case, maybe. So I'm okay with it.
Long
now.
way to go, though.
At the time, I'm like, he better be just generational if you're going to take him that high. Like, how many linebackers went in the top 10 to 12 this year? Like, none. You just don't see it. So that was my problem there. But yes,
Lucas Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness at 13 to answer your question.
Yeah, I know. Well, he better be pretty damn good too. So yeah, man. I don't know. I hope, man. I'm hopeful. Philly's gonna kick our ass, and I hate saying it though. I hate it. Make you feel better.
NFC. Is there anyone in the NFC that can even compete with Philly now?
Dream team, like Vince Young said.
Is there? Like, you tell me.
I don't know who competes with them.
The Detroit? The Cowboys?
I don't think Detroit's ready.
Big jump for Detroit, yeah.
Like,
I mean, the Niners are stacked, but who's their quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to get that figured out.
Yeah. San Francisco, yeah, I don't know. Like, the Cowboys? And I think they get their asses whooped when they play them.
I think the Cowboys might be the next best team in the NFC.
That makes me sick.
The NFC South sucks.
Yeah.
The Lions could probably be the best team in the North. I know the Vikings had a good year last year, but I don't know. I just don't. I don't trust them in the playoffs.
I think that was a sham.
Yeah. I mean, they won what, like 9 games by a score or less, or was it more than 9 games?
I don't remember.
It was something absurd that they won by like a score or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And that's why I think they were the pick to like get bounced early in the playoffs, because you just can't do that.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was at the end of the season or at some point during the season, they had more points scored on them, like total. They were in the negative, but still were winning all these games.
Yeah, because they got boat raced like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, the Cowboys beat the shit out of them.
Somebody else did too. Let me see if I can find there.
So is Brock Purdy going to be ready? He's got that elbow injury, right?
Oh, Purdy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if he's going to be ready or not. I don't know. Like, the Giants?
Well, according to baseball expert Ethan Sexton, at some point, Brock Purdy's going to turn back into a pumpkin. So
that's true. That's true. Shout out Ethan.
So the Vikings won 11 games by 1 score or less last year. They went 14-13. And the Packers beat them 41-17 at one point, and then the Cowboys 40-3. So I think it was definitely around the time that the Cowboys beat them. They had a a minus differential.
That's
And the
crazy.
Eagles beat them 24-7 as well. So
Yeah. Like I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, if San Francisco isn't the team, which I think they could be, but are like the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC, the Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants, and Niners thrown in there? Is that like what we're looking at? Because that's pathetic.
probably
It's the NFC East.
the Seahawks maybe make a little bit of a jump this year, but I mean,
Yeah.
maybe last year was fake.
I
Yep.
don't know. Gino ain't right back, so
He doesn't. But I mean, the NFC South. What? I mean, what? The Derek Carr with the Saints doesn't make them like a good team, right?
You
The
wouldn't think
Bucks,
so.
the Panthers.
someone's got to win
Falcons.
that division, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Saints are the favorite to win that division now with him, but like, I don't see them being a threat to the Eagles.
I don't think so.
Watch this. We're just out here pumping the Eagles up, and they're gonna go like fucking 8-9 next year and miss the fucking playoffs.
Let's do that.
Like, you never know. Look at the Rams this year. They went
Say
from,
that again.
I said, look at the Rams this year. They went from Super Bowl champs to they were awful.
Yeah.
Is there a bounce? Do the Rams have a bounce back year? I mean, they can't be worse, can they?
Is Stafford's hurt, right?
Is he still like? Is he still uncertain for the year? I haven't seen much.
He's starting to get old.
Yes, he's 35.
It's really it's tough though. This is I mean, the AFC is stacked, and the NFC is the Eagles. And I'll say this too with the Eagles, like if you're not in the Super Bowl, like as an Eagle or an Eagles fan, like it has to be a disappointment this year. It has to be. Like it just the way they drafted.
There's really no one
the
to
team,
stop you.
Yeah, there's no excuse.
I mean, they went to the Super Bowl last year, and it seems like their team's better with the
Yeah.
players they've already. I mean, as long as they pan out the way they're supposed to, like they're already better than they were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because, like you guys said, the AFC is loaded, and then it's just can anyone challenge the Eagles? That's what it breaks down to.
I don't think Green Bay ever would have actually done this, but the Niners should have sold out and got Rodgers. That's your NFC representative if Rodgers is on the Niners.
Yep.
Sure, you might have to play the Eagles, but I think that Niners team is stacked. You put Rodgers on there, that's a team that could easily win the whole thing.
I just think they had to do. They kind of came to the party a little late. It felt like, and there was a lot of moving parts from their end. They would they had to get Lansdale and then had to free up some cap space, even though that shit's all fake. But yeah, I agree. You put Rodgers on that roster, and our discussion is not who challenges the Eagles. It's can the Eagles hang with the 49ers, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just such an easier run through the playoffs. I mean, the AFC is a gauntlet, dude.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets don't make the playoffs this year.
That'd be crazy.
It would be crazy, but it wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like the AFC East has the Bills, who I think are still the favorites to win the division. They have the Dolphins and the Patriots in the division. And then there's the Chiefs in the West with the Chargers. I mean, the Raiders got Jimmy G now. You have to think the Broncos get better.
Yeah.
You can't imagine that's as bad of a year for them. And then the AFC North, you got the Bengals and the Ravens there. I mean, the AFC South's kind of a joke, but that is a
Jags.
tough ass conference.
The Jags aren't bad.
Yeah, the Jags. I forgot the Jags got hot kind of at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So should be another fun NFL season, that's for sure.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, Is there anything else? Anything we missed, MJ? Anything else we should touch on before we wrap this thing up, or any other thoughts you guys got?
Oh, I think it was a good draft, a fun one to watch and listen to. I was listening to Saturday stuff in the car and everything, and I thought it was great. And I love the conversation, and I can't wait to do it again next year.
Absolutely. Oh, I didn't realize this. One last little draft note. It's been since 2010 when the draft went to Thursday. I didn't realize it was that long ago. I just was like, oh, it's been like 5 or 6 years. And yeah, 2010 was the first time the draft went to Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, also, one last nugget. I also saw this. So the draft always used to be in New York at Radio City Music Hall. The only reason the NFL started moving it around, Radio City Music Hall was booked for the first year that they started to move it. And they asked Radio City Music Hall asked the NFL to move the draft back a week. And they said, no, thanks. We'll go somewhere else. Yeah, and now I've been moving it around ever since. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to them.
The giver of information, Ole Walls.
I try. I do what I can for you guys. All right, gentlemen. MJ, Bill, appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely be talking more football with you guys as the NFL season nears.
Awesome.
Thanks, Walls. Hey, shout out McDonald's. They make a great unsweet tea.
Best fountain Coke in the game too. Okay, let's talk a little fight game, shall we? Couple of cards this weekend. Might as well start over in boxing. We got Canelo Alvarez and John Ryder coming up on the as someone in some contributors to the pod, Big E Sexton says on Canelo's typical Cinco de Mayo weekend. Threw that in there just for Big E as he likes to harass me. Yeah, Canelo, John Ryder. I don't see this as much of a fight. I think Canelo handles him unless coming out of hand surgery, it hasn't been going well for him. Haven't seen anything like that. I don't see myself getting this pay-per-view. It just doesn't feel like I should have to pay pay-per-view to watch Canelo fight John Ryder. This feels like one of those fights where he was fighting on just regular DAZN. Like, that's what it should be. That said, not a terrible card, not great, but I mean, Julio Cesar Martinez, he's a fun fighter. He's in the co-main. Little guy, little flyweight. Alexander Gavsik, the Nail, they call him, last fought against Arturo Beterbiev a few years back. I think this is going to be I take that back. He had one comeback fight back in February that he won against a Josue Obando. But yeah, this will be kind of his first fight back on the main stage. He's on the pay-per-view card. They're holding this fight in Guadalajara, Mexico. Canelo's first time back there in like 13 years or something. Estadio Akron. Gosh, I hope I'm saying that even remotely correct. If I am, God bless me. 48,000 seat soccer stadium. So should be, I guess it's sold out. So it should be a good card. Or should be a good scene, not a good card. It's an okay card. But interesting nonetheless. So I like Canelo by mid to late knockout, somewhere post 7 before the 12th, like 7 to 11. I think he gets a stoppage, whether it's a TKO and he's just kind of worn him down, or if it's a clean knockout. I just don't think John Ryder's on his level. And I think Canelo will just take some time to get back into it. He's a little bit of a slow starter just in general. So I think he kind of gets off to a little bit of a slow start. Had been super active, hasn't fought since September, which is kind of his normal route, May and September. So I think, again, sprinkle, if you would. I would sprinkle the 7th through 11th for stoppage, TKO, knockout, something like that. I don't think it goes the distance. Let's just put it that way. Elsewhere, UFC 288 this weekend. Interesting card here. Aljamain Sterling defending his title against returning Henry Cejudo, Triple C, the triple champ. He's back for the first time in almost 3 years to the day for Cejudo. Where'd that go? I thought I had his stuff up here. I had his stuff up. But yeah, Henry Cejudo coming back. He had retired as the champ. after he beat Dominic Cruz, I believe. Let me double check all that. But yeah, he's making a comeback. So this is interesting. Like there's a lot of intrigue in the fact that he's coming back to make this fight, and he's going right for the title. May 9th of 2020, he defended the title, the Bantamweight Championship, and then vacated it on May 24th of 2020. So yeah, he's coming right back for what was once his. Sterling obviously has been the champ for a while now. 785 days. He beat Peter Yan in that crazy kind of, the knee was how he won it, but then he ended up beating him again to kind of prove, that he was the champ. So Aljamain Sterling, little note I found just kind of looking him up. Went to Morrisville State College in the hometown of my father, Craig. So very interesting. Ended up at Cortland. So these guys are both good wrestlers. Henry Cejudo, obviously one of the C's, is the Olympic gold medal he won. Part of his, his Olympic background in wrestling, obviously, to win a gold medal makes you pretty good at it. So I would have to imagine both guys want to get to the ground. Maybe Cejudo a little bit more than Sterling. Cejudo's wrestling background is a little better, obviously. Olympics is a little better than college wrestling, but I would have to think both of them want to get to the ground. So it'll be very interesting. I don't envision myself getting this fight either. Just looking forward. UFC 289 isn't really speaking to me too much. That's Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena. That was a good fight though. One of the last times they fought. Was that she the one who got the choke out that was like super crazy? UFC 290's Brandon Moreno. So yeah, the UFC doesn't have many of the pay-per-views coming up that I think I'm going to jump on, but you never know. God only knows what's running through my mind as those approach. Elsewhere on the card, we got Kron Gracie against Charles Jourdain. Maybe. I don't know. This is my first time. This is the first time on video where I'm looking at all these names and mispronouncing them, so you can see the total and utter cluelessness in my face while I do it too. So, I'll run through my picks while I go. I'll take Kron Gracie. I'll take any dude named Gracie, and when we make picks here. Next up, if another featherweight bout, Movsar Evloev. I don't know. He fights Bryce Mitchell. I can announce that one. I'll take Thug Nasty in that fight. Women's fight next in the middle of the card, Jessica Andrade and why? I even looked down before, but then like when I get to him again, it's just like a whole nother thing. Yan Jianan. I'm just going to take Jessica Andrade because I can pronounce that one. Co-main, welterweight fight. Very interesting here. Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is fighting for the second time in a month. He just fought Jorge Masvidal about a month ago. So that's wild. That's wild. I'll take Bilal Muhammad just because he's not coming off a fight 1 month ago. And in the main event, I'm going to take Sterling. I don't know. He's been active, 3 years off. Cejudo's not a young dude. I think he's 36 now. Yeah, 36. Just turned 36 not too long ago. Like I'll take Sterling in this. That's a long layoff at an older age. I'll just take the guy who's been fighting. I wouldn't be surprised if Cejudo beat him, not in the least bit, but I'm just going to go with the guy who's been fighting. So that wraps up the fighting stuff. Let's just roll right into the golf while we're at it. Didn't watch much of this. Watched a touch of it on Thursday, maybe some on Friday. Just threw some on. Watched none of it on the weekend. Not a bit. Not a bit. It didn't speak to me. The Mexico Open was not speaking to me. The field was not strong, but you got two strong players to come out at the top. Tony Finau wins 24 under for the weekend for Tony Finau. He was hot on his heels was one John Rahm, who fired a Saturday 61. So he's playing some good golf still. Tony Finau, that is his sixth PGA Tour win now. After, kind of in the 2021, it was like, oh, he's only had one win. He has only had 5 wins since 2021. Northern Trust in 2021, 3M in the Rocket Mortgage last year. Houston Open at the end of last year. So not that said, he's not winning like big dick events. Like he's winning. The Northern Trust that was a playoff event. But I mean, the 3M, the Rocket Mortgage. I mean, the Rocket Mortgage, he outlasted Patrick Cantlay and Cameron Young. So those are players. Taylor Pendrith, and then Mexico Open, he outruns John Rahm. Like he did. Like it would have been pretty easy for him to fall to John Rahm. He bested John Rahm on the day. He shot a 5 under. He was 2 shots clear around the start, and he finished 3 shots clear. So that was a good showing. A little Sunday 66, not bad. 65 on Saturday. So 65, 66 on the weekend. Not much to complain about. Pair that with a 64 on Friday and a 65 on Thursday. That's good playing, man. We're heading into the Wells Fargo this week. So we got an elevated event. So I'll be back and I'll be interested in that one. And then we're just 2 weeks away from the PGA up in Oak Hill. So we have the Wells Fargo this week. I forget where was it? It's the Byron Nelson next week. TPC Craig Ranch. I think people don't in the golf commentating world don't speak highly of that place. But yeah, then the PGA at Oak Hill in a couple weeks. So yeah, big tone. Elsewhere in the golf world, some good karma out there in the golf world. Let me find the thing here. Oh goodness. Alejandro Tatsti was one of the 6 guys penalized for the wrongful use of a shuttle at last week's KFT event, Corn Ferry Tour. I talked about that. He got an invite into Vedanta. Is that what Vedanta? No, that was not this. I don't think. Let me double check. Again, it helps if you don't watch the golf. Oh yeah, it was this. He got into this event and finished T10. Alejandro Tatsti. Sunday 64. Good playing on Sunday. Saturday 71 after he made the cut. 67 on Thursday. Yeah, so geez, shot 69 on Thursday with a double on the par 5 18th. Yeah, so he gets in T10, 150 grand, and because of that, he's into Quail Hollow. The golf gods giving some love. The golf gods are out there giving some love to Alejandro Tatsti. Is that it? Tatsti? Tasti. Alejandro Tatsti. I'm rooting for him. Hope he plays well. Elsewhere in the sports world, kind of moving on from the golf, we got the Kentucky Derby this weekend. I apologize, I didn't have anyone on to talk about it. We'll have somebody on to talk. It's one of the horse races this year. Just looking at some names of the contenders. Forte seems to be the favorite. He's 5-2. Teppet Trice is next in line. Now, this was the name that was really speaking to me when I looked at the list. Angel of Empire. He's 8-1, so not the favorite, but he's a favorite up there. A couple other names out there I liked. Lord Miles really caught my eye. Rocket Cam, Major Dude. Where was the one I really liked? Sun Thunder. Really like Sun Thunder. Sun Thunder, Major Dude, Rocket Can, Lord Miles. And then, yeah, Angel of Empire. Parlay those. Or throw them in a box. Throw them in a how many did I make? Like 7? It's like a $120 box. Do that. Take them. Do it. What else is going on in the sports world? We have the Stanley Cup playoffs. There was quite the event last night. The Bruins choked it away. I think I said last week, they're up 3-1. They should be moving on. Not so much. The Bruins will not be moving on. They lose last night in overtime 4-3 and lose the series 4-3 after being up 3-1. Set a record for points and wins in the regular season. And I think it just goes to show that hockey is unlike, maybe even unlike the NBA, in that the regular season the teams that win a lot sometimes just get beat early in the playoffs. I don't know. I'm just doing this off like my dumb memory. I feel like I hear about this every once in a while that there's just great teams that get knocked out of the playoffs very soon, and it just happens consistently. So yeah, the Bruins are out. What else we got here? So we have one series left. The Devils of Deep Dish fandom have a Game 7. I believe that is tonight. Yep, Game 7 tonight. Devils and the Rangers in New Jersey. Be interesting to see how many Rangers fans there are in that building. They will face Carolina in the second round. Carolina took out the Islanders. The Maple Leafs take on the Florida Panthers, who beat the Bruins. And then over in the West, the Kraken, they took out the other number 1 seed, the Colorado Avalanche. Or I don't know if that's the other number 1 seed. They do it funky. There's like 2 ones in each side. That was one of the ones. That was the wild card 1 beat the 1 Avalanche. I forget how it works. Let me see if I can pull up the records real quick. Okay, so they actually had the 3rd best record. Edmonton had the 2nd. I don't know how they're splitting it up. But Vegas and Edmonton move on, as well as the Kraken and the Dallas Stars. So the West is set, and the Rangers and the Devils figuring it out to see who moves on in the East. But yeah, the big story is the Bruins. The Bruins choke job. That's the big story in hockey, and that even I know that's a big choke job. NBA playoffs. I think we're all to the second round here as well. In the East, the Miami Heat took down the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. Really put it to them. I know they had Giannis out for a couple. New York Knicks will play the Miami Heat in the second round. Heat and the Knicks are back. Heat and the Knicks. They had no trouble with Cleveland, 4-1 getting through them. Sixers beat Brooklyn. Brooklyn is really not the team that qualified for the playoffs. They lost KD and things like that. So Boston gets by Atlanta. Atlanta gets through the scheduling. Janet Jackson has to move back a night, but they make it through. Then out west, Denver and Phoenix have played a game already. Denver's up. Miami has also beat New York in the first game. I should mention that. And then I think the series that everybody's interested in, like even myself, I'm going to tune into some of this. The LA Lakers, after they put a 4-2 beat down on the Grizz after Dylan Brooks runs his mouth and then won't talk to the media. They move on to face the Golden State Warriors, who got taken to 7 games by the Sacramento Kings, who I think won their first road playoff game in something like 15 or 16 years when they beat Golden State in one of the games. So Lakers Golden State, that seems like a fun series. And then the series out west seemed pretty interesting. And then kind of back in the East, you have like the old classics, Philly and Boston, New York and Miami. So I'm actually a little excited or interested to watch NBA playoffs, as interesting as that sounds. So yeah, that should be fun. Also, I started watching baseball a little bit yesterday. Listen to the Indians. Gosh, I can't believe I keep the Guardians game again yesterday on Sunday. Watch the game Saturday, listen to the game Sunday and earlier today. So yeah, I might be back. I'm testing out their like MLB package that you can get, pretty affordable. So I might be back to watching some baseball and then following around the Guardians, the G's. I'm gonna call them the G's, the Cleveland G's. They got the Yankees tonight. So I may be interested in that. The G's. My G's, the Cleveland Guardians, not off to the greatest start in the world. They are 13-14, I believe. 13-15 now. Now they're 3.5 games back of the Twins, but pretty rough division, the Central. It's going to be them and the Twins. Twins are 17-12, and then the Tigers are 10-17. So maybe they can do something. But I think I'm going to follow them. So. Okie dokie, let's do some passing thoughts here. So to start off, I'm just making my lunch the other day, and I throw on the TV, and Bar Rescue is on like all day. Whatever channel it's on, it is on, I think, from like 8 a.m. to like 8 p.m. And I'm just kind of like paying half attention. All of a sudden, I look at it and like, I don't even remember the moment now. It was like somebody like was getting really happy and he was starting to cry and he was hugging, what is it? John Taffer is the guy's name. He's hugging John Taffer, and then Taffer's like kind of like getting choked up. Next thing you know, I'm like getting choked up. I'm like holding back tears, sitting on my couch on like a Wednesday afternoon eating lunch. I'm like, this goddamn guy with a bar that he's run into the ground and now he's got a second chance. It got me. I'm like becoming a pussy in my old age. Like, I don't know what it is, but like the dumbest things like choke me up and like make me like have like those just like one little tear. Here it comes. God, I'm such a pussy. Oh God. Here was something I found interesting, and I don't know that this is unprecedented. This has probably happened numerous times before. The DNC, Democratic National Committee, or whatever it is, convention, whatever, I think it's committee, has decided there's not going to be any debates for the Democratic primary this year. Now, usually you don't see people challenging sitting presidents. I don't think that's too common. I know it has happened in the past. I know it happened to Gerald Ford back in '76. I think Reagan challenged him in the primary. Jimmy Carter might have got challenged in the '80 primary as well. Like, so it's happened, but it's not super common. I don't think it's happened in my memory of like, I don't think it's happened in the last 20 years. I don't think Bush got primaried. Obama sure didn't. Trump didn't. So this is kind of a newer thing again. Now the DNC has decided there's no debates, and the two people in the primary are, is it Ted Kennedy Jr.? Robert Kennedy Jr. He's RFK's son. His uncle was John Kennedy. His father was Robert Kennedy, RFK, who both of whom were assassinated. And Mariana Williamson, is it Williamson? Either way, the DNC has decided there's not going to be any debates. I mean, probably pretty obvious why. Joe Biden's not of the greatest mind, not of the soundest mind, that's for sure. But I think it's probably a bad precedent. It's bad enough that we only have two parties in this country that we can like get presidential and Senate and majority of Senate and Congress candidates from, to like shut off the fact that they even have to like pay attention to their challengers, because this basically shuts their challengers out of getting, main airtime on like the corporate news and, the mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. So it's not great. And the problem is the Republicans will see it and be like, well, if we ever have the situation, we can kind of shut it down too. I mean, I think the answer is we need way more political parties. If you have like 3 or 4 political parties, you don't just have to get stuck choosing one or the other because they both suck. Like, they're terrible. And you don't want dudes like in the back rooms in the suits being like, well, we're just going to let Joe Biden run it. We don't need to hear from the other side. So anytime that happens, it's bad news. And the Republicans would do the same thing if they felt like if it was Joe Biden was a Republican and the exact same thing was happening, they would do the exact same fucking thing. So it's just not good. It's just not good. I mean, it's not great that probably our two fucking choices for president, again, are going to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Hopefully, come November of 2024, that's not the case. But we are careening towards that. I don't know. I mean, it's dumb. It's dumb. You know what's not dumb, though? The fucking Tiger Woods video games. I busted those sons of bitches out for PlayStation 2, and I got the one. I've been playing a little 07, and I turned through 05 in. This game, right here. This game is awesome. The Tiger Woods video games from back in the day are fucking so sweet. I've had so much fun playing. It turns out I was a big fan of the TaylorMade Rosa putters at the time. I think I had one. And all my dudes are apparently sponsored by TaylorMade Rosa because they all wear the Rosa hat and had Rosa putters in the bag. So yeah, those games are great though. I hope the new EA game is any good. I don't think I have the system. I think I have to have the new Xbox system, which I don't have to play it, or the new PlayStation. Don't have that either. So I went back to PlayStation 2 and started busting them out in that era. Speaking of older things from an era gone by, the song 1985 by Bowling for Soup came out in the year 2004. So in the year 2004, 1985 was 19 years before. We are now in the year 2003. 19 years after 2004. So if they were to make the song today, it would have to be about the year they released it. It hurts me. It hurts me inside to hear these things about my childhood, which is farther and farther away at every imaginable stop. Watched, as we continue the Wayback Machine, I watched Half Baked on Saturday night with the roommate. My God, is that movie so dumb but so funny? Dave Chappelle, Jim Brewer's in it. Who's the other two guys? Let me look it up here. It was so stupid but so funny still. And then I saw, like, looking it up that, like, oh, the critics hated it. It's like, no shit, the critics hated it. Like, they don't like anything fun. Guillermo Diaz played Scarface, and Harland Williams played Kenny Davis. Tommy Chong was in it, and Mary Jane, who is Dave Chappelle's love interest, is played by Rachel True. Saw this movie when I was a kid, thought it was the funniest thing ever. Still holds up. Still pretty funny. And I don't know. It was just dumb shit that made me laugh. And I saw, like, oh, the critics hate it. It's like, what did these critics expect when they went and watched Half Baked? It's a movie about a bunch of stoners who sell weed to get their buddy out of jail. Sorry, spoiler alerts. The movie's like fucking 25 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, that's not really my fault. We're just going to keep it rolling on the Wayback Machine. 23 years ago today, April 30th, when I'm recording this, Backlash 2000. Backlash 2000, The Rock defeats Triple H to win the WWF title with a big assist from a returning Stone Cold, who comes in, lays everybody out with steel chairs, and just leaves. My God, it was the first wrestling event I don't maybe seen something before, but it was like the big one. Kevin, who we owe the biggest thing of gratitude to this, as I've said, with the video, his brother had taped it on pay-per-view, and I think we watched it within the next couple days. And I became hooked on wrestling ever since, and still love wrestling to this day. And that was the genesis of it. Backlash 2000, the main event, The Rock versus Triple H. Shane McMahon was the guest referee. Vince was hovering around at ringside. Patterson and Briscoe show up in refs' jerseys and start beating the shit out. It was everything was stacked against The Rock. Well, there comes Stone Cold. The music hits, the glass shatters. Stone Cold comes out with a chair and just starts laying it into people. My favorite part is Stone Cold hits Triple H with a chair, and then Pat Patterson comes in. Stone Cold gets him, hits a spin move right into Briscoe, and JR on the call is fantastic. It's Patterson, Briscoe. It's the best. It's my favorite wrestling match ever. I know it's pure nostalgia, but whatever. And other things that make you feel old. Shane McMahon is now 53 years old, which is the same age Vince was in 1998 at the start of the Stone Cold feud. So there you have it. A couple other things here. First off, Like a Prayer by Madonna is an absolute fucking jam. Just banger. Absolute banger. Also, saw this over the past week as well. Where did it go? In 2018, after Patrick Reed won the Masters, he bought himself a $450,000 Porsche 911 G2 RS. Had a Masters theme paint job, like a green, and had yellow calipers, whatever that means. It ended up on a salvage website with just 360 miles on it. I guess the VIN matched, and it looked just like it. And it was pretty messed up. So, very interesting. Did Pat Reed crash his car? Like, what went on? That was reported by Joe Pompliano. He's got a good follow. He's a good follow on, like, Instagram and Twitter. He posts, like, some interesting things. I think he's who I got the little nugget about the draft moving. I'm like 99% sure. He did a cool thing on Wrexham and I'm looking at him right now and I can't see it. Ryan Reynolds and the guy from Always Sunny, how they bought it. I'm interested in that. I want to watch that docuseries now. But yeah, he's a good fellow. So yeah, Pat Reed maybe totaled his Porsche 911. I haven't seen anything more about it, but it's out there. It's out there. That's all I had though. So let's go wrap this thing up. We're just going to keep it rolling. We're going to do it in one video. I'm not cutting. So closing time, everybody. Big thank you to all you guys. Thanks for coming along, watching. Had a good first week on YouTube. So appreciate all you guys. So thank you so much for the support. Again, huge thanks to Kevin. That intro is sweet. The editing, the stuff he's done, he's the man. He's just doing it because he's a good friend. So thank you so much, Kevin. You're the man. Back next week. Got the Kentucky Derby, Wells Fargo, hockey, NBA and NHL playoffs are going to keep going. I'll find some other dumb shit to talk about. So until then, peace.